Welcome to the Supported Living Property Podcast with your host, me, Lisa Brown, the place to learn about supported living property investing. Hi, Michael. It's great to have you back today. We're going to be talking today about I can get you clients and other things scammers say. That's what you texted me as a title. And I was like, brilliant. I love this conversation. So for people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people about you?
I'm Michael Hinett. I'm the director of the Qualis Group of Companies, and we do all things around social care from the care perspective. So registrations, tender writing, turnaround and audits.
Brilliant, thank you. And if you haven't seen, we've got a few other videos with Michael talking about how to get set up as a provider. So do go and find those on the channel if you haven't seen those already. So who is being scammed? Why is this an issue? What's happening?
Particularly around the supported living space, there is a general lack of information. You can't just Google and find definitive answers and then crack on. You've got to know what you're looking for. It is there predominantly, but you've got to know what you're looking for in order to be able to find it. And there's so many people that are saying, well, I can help you, I can get you registered. There's people guaranteeing things that you can't guarantee. You know, we do CQC registrations. We've probably had maybe 4 people fail in 5 years, which is absolutely amazing. But that is because we won't just register anyone. You know, if you've got experience and you've got the will, then we'll help you to register. We're not just guaranteeing that you will register when we've not even had a conversation with you about who you are, what your skill set is. So there's lots of people that are believing that supported living is this golden goose egg of money, and they are very gullible, and people are saying, yes, we can do this for you, and they're taking some fairly considerable amounts of money. The other one is if you look on Facebook now, there's an absolute shed load of new consultants that are popping up. They've all got the same profile picture. They've got ChatGPT generated. I'm not sure, I think they're probably bots, but they'll answer every question. It's a ChatGPT generated answer. It doesn't actually answer the question if you know what you're looking at, but it looks comprehensive. I can do it. I'm constantly taking them out of my group. I know that other people will take them out of their group, but they just pop back up. They're getting through the filters, and they're popping back up. We've lost a few tenders recently to those types of people, where someone will come through to us, will ask us to price a tender, we'll go through it, we'll give them a price, they'll say, look, this person can do it for a quarter, if not less, of the price. Which, you know, occasionally you will get a new startup person who is fantastic and is doing things far cheaper than what they should be. But this is literally a case of they farm as many people as they can, they get them to pay, and then they disappear. You know, it's a brand new profile that's just been set up, or been set up a couple of months ago. It's got no friends associated with it, or a very small number of friends from those groups. There's no limited company attached to it. You can't find the person if you search for them on LinkedIn or anything like that. I don't know, maybe it's me. You know, I'm quite protective of my money. It takes a while for me to earn it. Getting it out of my hands is quite difficult. I'm not going to give you 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15,000 pounds unless I'm very confident that you are a proper company with a proper person. You know, if you've got a stock generated image as your Facebook picture, you're not associated to a limited company, and you've got no trading history or anything like that, you're not getting any money off me. So it does baffle me sometimes how willingly people seem to be out.
I would say I've worked with some really experienced people. I've worked with actually someone who's quite a senior lawyer. I've worked with all kinds of people who've had some real issues where they've trusted consultants, not ones that look like bots, people who were real people.
Yeah, I think with the...
But still, you know, so I think there's also this issue where there's some real people giving some bad advice and
there is. You know, the problem with supported living and the kind of explosion that's gone through is there is a lot of money being generated for consultants, and a lot of consultants that don't have the experience of wanting to jump on that kind of and get a slice of that pie. things unfortunately go wrong sometimes. I've seen people's businesses go under because they've overstretched themselves, over leveraged themselves in other areas. So that is a consideration, and sometimes that is. Sometimes there was it was not long after we started, and it was an established consultancy company that they'd just disappeared. They took a lot of work on, and then they disappeared.
Right.
Things can happen. So it is often difficult to protect your money. So sometimes it isn't your fault.
Yeah.
Sometimes people make mistakes, and sometimes people are scamming.
Yeah, there are some bad people out there
We
sometimes.
do at the minute. It's a lot of rewriting tenders for people that have obviously paid money and somebody's dropped it into some sort of AI chatbot. So we're rewriting that to actually match the spec. But prior to that, it was these kind of startup packages. So we've never done packages because it ties you together for a long time. If these packages, they tend to come with registration support, then some mentoring, then some tender support, maybe some policies, maybe 2 or 3 tenders. So they tie you together for a very long time. And it's always made me think, what if you don't like each other? You're kind of stuck. If you don't gel, when you're being mentored off someone, you've got to get on with them.
Yeah, it's a personal choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
The whole thing about adult learning, being able to choose who your mentor is and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've never offered that. If you want, we do it, but we don't do it as a you pay for this and you can't get out of it kind of thing. It just doesn't sit morally with me. People should, we work. A lot of people are going into the learning disability supported living kind of industry. So that's all about choice. So why would you not, as a consultant, want people to have that choice? We do things for a similar price, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But you have, if you don't like the way that we do your registration support, then you don't have to engage with us to do anything else. If you do like it and you do like the way that I'm quite direct and swear all the time, then by all means we'll do other things and help you as much as you possibly want. Some people, we do practically everything for them. We write their application to get registered. We help them with the interview. They get themselves up and running. We help them with tenders. Once they're on the frameworks, we're then doing call-off competitions for them. And they do what they do well, and they pay us to do what we do well. Other people, we train them and we teach them how to do things. I like to teach people how to do things. I know it's doing myself and my company out of a job, but I'd rather see someone do that and develop. So I think it's important that when you're selecting your consultants, you are selecting people that have a proven track history. These new people that are popping up, and that's not because I'm not saying that every new person that's popping up. We've all got to start somewhere. But when I started, you could look on my LinkedIn and you could see that I had a track record in the industry that I was consulting. It wasn't a case of Googling me and finding absolutely nothing. There should be some history of that person showing their expertise.
And I think we also are in an age where we can feel quite trusting of people because we get to know them, feel like we get to know them through social media and YouTube and this kind of stuff. And I know some of the conversations I have with people, they feel like they know me because I've been in their car with them because of the podcast. They know my voice. Do you know what I mean? Feel like they know me. They feel like they trust me. I know I'm not going to scam somebody, but actually there are people out there who are using these same techniques to get you to know and like them, make themselves, you see them all the time, and then they become familiar, and you feel like your brain begins to think they're friends and that you trust them. And then actually, when you look in their background, maybe they don't have a great care background, maybe they don't have great experience in this. So there's two things, isn't there? One is having that digital footprint, but one is almost having too much of a digital footprint. Like they are really great at their marketing, but maybe not so great at delivering.
I think the thing is, if you start searching for people and you are finding a lot of unhappy people commenting on them, it comes up on Facebook. You can't really escape it anymore. Do they have a trust pilot? Have they got Google reviews? All that kind of stuff is going to tell you that this person is legitimate in what they do. And even the best consultants, sometimes they don't quite get it right. We don't win every tender that we go for. We win the vast majority of them, but because a lot of that is because there's a screening. If you come to us and you want a particular tender written, and it's a one winner tender for a specific piece of work, if you've never had a conversation with that local authority and you've never delivered that type of thing and you're a brand new registered company, we aren't going to be writing that tender for you. There's a very strong possibility that we're not anyway. There has been a couple of cases where somebody said, yes, I know, but I'll get a conversation with the local authority and I'm more bothered about that. So you've got to justify why we would do a piece of work that we're very, very confident isn't going to win. And all it takes is for you to put yourself in the local authority's shoes. They're commissioning something that's going to be £2 million worth of business. Are they going to give that to a completely untested, unknown, not local company? Or are they going to give that to somebody who is more established, more proven, more local? The chances are it's going to the established company even before somebody writes a tender.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to kind of steer people towards.
And what we're seeing is a lot of people on social media promising you're going to get rich quick if you come in as a supported living provider, aren't we? We're seeing.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it a few times on. It tends to be comments. That could be because of the way that we police the consultant advertising within our group, but it will be, I've got contacts with this local authority. I can make an introduction, or I can get you clients. I think it was the one referring to at the time, and it just isn't going to happen. You know, and I know of a couple of people who've paid. They've signed up to like a monthly subscription. It's a minimum of 6 months.
Right.
And they've got no choice but to carry on paying it, and nothing's materialised. But again, if you put yourselves in the shoes of the commissioners, if I've got a really good relationship with a commissioner and I say, give Lisa, who is this client that I'm working with, some service users that want to live in supported living, if you mess that up, I can never use that connection again. So anybody that does have those levels of connections isn't going to be giving them and using them for random people on the internet. You know, it might be a case of where you've worked with somebody as a consultant for years and years and years, and you are absolutely sure of their ability to deliver and their quality, and you might then do an introduction. For randoms on the internet, it's just not going to happen.
No. Anyone who's got a trusted relationship with someone like a commissioner is not going to do that, are they? That's not.
Absolutely not. And as well, a lot of these consultants, they do have their own businesses. So why would they not be taking those clients for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely.
We,
So
we, we,
we have this whole kind of I will get you clients promise that people are making. And like you said, so one is that they'll introduce you to commissioners. That's not straightforward. That's not an easy process. Also, the way you get clients officially is through a framework, isn't it?
in most areas, it's through a framework. Yeah. So there is off framework or spot purchasing, which does pop up every now and again. It's often where if there's a framework in place, if the framework providers can't meet the need or can't do it within a particular time, then the procurement rules say that we can go outside the framework. Some local authorities don't have a framework and they do everything from a spot purchasing point of view, although that's getting rarer. A lot of NHS trusts, or the ICBs, they do a lot of spot purchasing as well. The ICB stuff, the NHS stuff tends to be people that are very, very, very complex.
Yeah, so you're looking for very specialised services there, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there are people selling that as another element of the dream. You can get
Oh, are they?
the complex people, and you get 2-to-1 support, so it's even more money, and it's the risk that's associated with that for the people that are being supported by unskilled staff is unfair. But also the risk to your business if you don't get it right, you can end up with serious injuries to your staff, serious injuries to the people that are being supported. You can lose those packages, and people can go back into the hospital, and they can be stuck there for a significantly long period of time, which could have completely been avoided had it been the right provider. Now, hopefully, because of the kind of stringent way that the NHS tends to drags its feet really in commissioning. Hopefully most of those people would be filtered out, but I'm sure there are some that get through the door.
And so we have this level of complexity where, someone's saying straightforward on social media, I can get you clients. Actually, it's not recognizing all of those different processes of the ways that you get clients. It's not a straightforward, here, I'm just going to give you 20 clients, that I've got in my pocket. It doesn't work like that, does it? And I
Oh,
think,
so from a funding perspective, the funding is predominantly local authority and then NHS. There is a small element of private funding, which would be ISFs type budgets, individual service funds, for those who don't understand that. Um, those so the ISF people have every choice to be able to go out and find any provider that they want. The chances are the local authority would be saying these are the providers that you can pick from, because that's the way that I've always seen it work. Your NHS will either have its own framework or potentially use and liaise with the local authority through their framework, or in some rare cases would do it under a spot. So we did some commissioning a few years ago to support one of the NHS trusts local to us. And then obviously your local authority frameworks and tenders. Now it depends on the type of framework that's in place. If it's a closed framework, you can't get on it anyway, so you're not going to get any referrals from that. If it's an open, is it swamped? It might be one of three. I think it was Oxford closed one of their rounds because they had 300 providers apply in one round. And they
wow.
already had 300 providers on it from previous rounds. Now, not everybody is going to bid for every client.
No, no.
You could probably safely assume that 50% bid for most of the clients, especially if you've got a lot of new providers on there that aren't really looking at the specialisms and the support needs. They're just looking at, we need clients for this house that we've had to get. So let's say there's 150 clients, 150 150 support providers, sorry. That's 75 people, 75 companies bidding for every service user. That then means that somebody's got to do some sort of shortlisting. So yeah, you absolutely not. Even if you're on a framework, you're not guaranteed clients.
No, so it's not that straightforward. So I think people who have fixed on this thinking, brilliant, this is an easy way, to find out how to get clients. It's complicated. There's processes to go through to get there. The other thing that we see a lot of people promising is, I can get you property for supported living. It's a thing that yeah. What are we seeing around those? What kind of things are happening there?
So the uh, it's a mess, isn't it?
It is a
You've got a
mess.
lot of people that know a bit taking advantage of people that don't know anything in a lot of circumstances. And again, I'm generalising, and that isn't the case all the time. But a lot of people see, oh, these you'll see an advert out for a property, and it's £2 a month, which is the market rent for the area. As soon as you have a conversation with them about being a supported living provider, they know from somewhere, where I've no idea, that supported living providers are rich, and they put the rent up by £500 a month. It's now significantly higher than the LHA rates. So who's going to make that shortfall up? Because you can't put it through the person who's living there. It's got to be the supported living provider. That then means that you're really, really skirting that grey area of separation between housing and care that CQC enforce. The other bit is the sources that, yeah, we'll find you these properties and we'll charge you 3, 4, 5, 6 grand for this property that you're going to make an absolute mint from. Yeah, it's
And it's not that simple, is it? And I think the problem is that a lot of the sources that I speak to who have jumped into supported living as a way of thinking, brilliant, I'll source properties for supported living providers, they don't understand the right kind of properties. And then we've got new providers setting up who are
you can't understand, you can't pick the right property for supported living until you know who's going to be living in there. specifically who's going to be living there. Ideally what you want is the 3 or 4 clients, if there's going to be some sharing, you want those people to be involved in the selection process of what's going to be their home. If not, then you need to have a really good idea of the type of person that you're going to be putting in there. And a lot of people have no idea. Some of the things that I've seen, even recently, the HMO type stuff, which works for students who are in there for a brief period of time. They're predominantly there because they're studying. It's not a home for life. You wouldn't live in a HMO for the rest of your life if you could avoid it. You want shared space.
Not the way some of the HMOs are done, the student HMOs, where there's very little communal space. It's about maximising bedrooms and maximising rents. That's a very different market, isn't it, to where you're.
But that is also some of the stuff that's coming through. Some of the people that have committed to them for 5 years. It just, yeah, it's I do feel for people because they can't get out of the contracts, especially, a lot of people that have come from dom care into supported living. It's those guys that it impacts the most because the agreement is in place with the dom care company. They can't wrap that business up to escape from a dodgy contract. The only thing they can do is look at, is there a way, is there an Armageddon clause, or are they not meeting the terms of the contract in some way, shape, or form?
So it's about being really careful about the kind of properties. If you're setting up as a provider, one is not to get the property too early. That's a really big mistake we're seeing a lot, isn't it? But I think the other thing is to be really careful about the kind of property you're looking for, making sure you've identified who your tenants are going to be and is this property actually suitable. And that 6-bed HMO in the middle of a really busy street in some grotty town somewhere, probably in the rougher end of that town, is possibly not going to be the right location for the people that you're supporting.
No, I think if I've always treated business money, whether I've been employed or whether it's my own business, I've always treated it like it's my own personal money. And I don't pay for something unless I'm sure that it's needed or that I can get some sort of, if it's an investment, am I going to get something back from it? So if I'm committed to a property, am I going to be able to get a tenant for it? That kind of thing. If I'm going down this route of supported living, am I informed? Do I need to speak to anyone else? Is the people in the property type space that I can listen to that's going to give me better options around what the contract should look like?
And that's what I never intended to set up doing any training, and particularly never set up to do training for providers. But that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is training providers how to choose the right properties, because it's really hard, isn't it? And like you said, if you come from a dom care background or a social care background, you might be brilliant at delivering support and looking after people, but actually you don't understand how to choose the right property and how to do a viewing of that property and make sure it's not going to fall down on you.
One of the main difficulties is the commissioning route. The way that things used to be commissioned a long time ago, when I first started in supported living, which is not, I'm not telling you just how long.
Wasn't long ago. No.
More than 2 years. You would be involved in some sort of mini competition. The people and their families, or the people or their families, would be involved in the kind of final selection process. You would then work with those people that are going to live in whatever house is identified to identify property. So you would go to a number of different registered social landlords. You would say, we've got these 3, 4, 5 people, they want to live together, they've got these needs, they want to be in this area, they want this type of property. You would then be sent maybe 4 or 5 properties to go and look at. You would take the people, you would have a look at what's going to be their forever home. They would then choose where they're going to live. And it's really, really lengthy. That process can take 12 months. But they are fully, I mean, I wouldn't, I'm not going to let you pick where I'm going to live for the rest of my life.
No, absolutely.
Why should we expect that for the people that we're supporting? So that's the proper process. That is it, because of how time intensive it is, and the cuts that have happened to local authorities. There's not as many commissioners, there's not as many social workers. They're having to outsource to brokerage teams. That process, it just doesn't happen. I don't know if it can't happen. It probably can't. But the brokerage approach is this person needs support, they need this kind of support, and that's pretty much it. You've then got to bid for them. If you're bidding and you are then trying to do things in the proper way, which would then be to liaise with different housing providers to find the appropriate house, you're delaying your ability to be able to support that person. That person might be coming to the end of a placement, they could be in crisis. So by doing it properly, you're then putting yourself at a slight disadvantage to other people that have already invested in some sort of property, because we can do it and we can do it from next Wednesday because we've already got property in place.
Which isn't great for the person. We talk a lot about people's choice, but
Sometimes it isn't. No, it could be that it is. It might be a nice house that's been invested into. It could very well be a small HMO that absolutely shouldn't be. You would hope that there'd be some sort of selection process that would stop that. But in some areas, this is the property that you're going into.
Yeah. So we've got issues around the I can get you clients and the kind of promises around that. We've got issues around the property and the scams that we're seeing with the properties and the overcharging for sourcing and the wrong properties and then signing the wrong rents and the wrong leases and all of that stuff, that we're seeing happening. We've also got issues with people over promising. You touched on that a little bit earlier about promising you that you're going to be really, really wealthy, not being realistic about the kind of actual costs of running a service, the staffing challenges, the other things that come up with it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's that you can go online and you can do comparisons with home care. The UK Home Care Association published their rates and their breakdowns. They're significantly higher than what you would see from any local authority in the land. But there is a way to be able to break it down and to kind of understand it. You can't really do that for supported living. The creation of your hourly rate isn't much different from dom care. You tend to not have travel time and travel allowance in it. The rest of it is very, very similar. It's the applying it to a property that people don't really understand. So when you start to have people placed with you, you have to cost each person individually as though the service is full, which is why the spot purchasing often can end up giving people some significant headaches. So if you've got a service where there's going to be 4 people sharing, and you manage to pick up one spot purchase, you might be elated. You're going to get paid a quarter of the shared support, a quarter of the sleep support, and the person's one-to-one. But you are going to have to staff 100% of the shared support and 100% of the sleep. So you're going to be significantly out of pocket in opening that service. So if you don't get service user number 2 and service user number 3, that's going to cause you financial problems, which is another issue with when people do open a service and they realise that they then will take anyone, and the matching then often doesn't get done the way that it should do, which can cause all the headaches for everybody further down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this whole kind of like we talked earlier about the guaranteeing you registration, guaranteeing you, CQC registration and stuff. That's just not something that anybody can do, is it? Because the process doesn't work like that.
If the consultancy that you're working with is decent at doing the paperwork, they should be able to get you through to the interview. If you're horrendous at interviews, nobody's going to get. I have heard stories of people attending interviews for other people. I've not seen it, but I believe that it happens.
Like people taking driving tests for other people, same thing.
Yeah. It might happen. It probably does. But nobody can guarantee that you'll get through that unless they're doing something that they really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
We will get you to the interview. We've done the paperwork enough times. We know enough about the paperwork. Even when CQC change it, we will change it a bit. They change their internal expectations all the time. We then change our expectations and we match what they want. So our paperwork is pretty good, but we can't get you through the interview. We give you mentoring, we'll give you things to read, but that's also why we have that kind of pre-screen. There's only so much mentoring that can be given. If if you have no idea what supported living is and you've never done any sort of support, morally, I don't think it'd be right for us to register to get you registered. You know,
But there are other people out there who will happily take £40,000 from you and guarantee you a registration.
unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I think and so I think it's about, how to, if you've listened to all of this and you're thinking, well, how am I going to protect myself? We talked a little bit earlier about looking at people's digital footprint, didn't we? About looking about their background, asking around, I guess, seeing who has used these people and getting some, feedback.
The advent of social media, whilst it comes with a lot of negatives, it also is difficult to hide. You know, if you're in the as part of your due diligence, you probably have joined a number of different Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups. You've been on the internet doing different things. You're watching this podcast, so you probably found either me or you. Have a look at what people are saying. If the vast majority of people are saying don't work with this person, probably a good idea not to bother.
Yeah, yeah,
If
taking
lots
your
of people
time.
are saying, you know, go with this person, they're trustworthy, I've had success, like, you know, you're probably all right. If you combine it with, you know, does the person have a history in what they're saying? Have they been an established business? Do they talk, you know, like they know what they're doing? All those things are quite important. So, like anything, you know, you do your due diligence on the type of business that you're going to operate. If you feel that you need a consultant and some support, do some due diligence on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's also realizing there isn't a magic shortcut. There are people there who can help you, but you've also got to do some of the work yourself.
Yeah, and to be fair, the more you do yourself, the more you upskill yourself. You know, if you do everything, then you understand the process much better, and you can appreciate it. Often the benefit of using a consultancy is the time that it saves you. You know, we write a tender in probably a quarter of the time someone who is operationally skilled but isn't used to writing tenders, because that's what we do a lot of, or that's what our tender writers do a lot of. It's the same with the CQC registration. We've done that many of them that we know what needs to go into it, and we know when to stop as well, because a lot of people, particularly with tender writing and writing the certain forms within CQC applications, they write like they speak, which is just so it just wastes word count. They may as well write ums and ahs and things like that, and be concise. Using bullet points can convey something that, you know, you might save yourself 15 words by using a couple of bullet points. So yeah.
Brilliant. Michael, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing all your information with us and helping to protect people really from some of the scams that are going on out there. We'll put your contact details in the show notes, so if people want to find you, then they can do that. But thank you so much for coming on today.
Always, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you're finding this content useful, then maybe it's time you join the Supported Living Property Network. If you're not already a member, then let me explain what's included. The network is a unique community of property investors and providers coming together to create quality supported living homes. If you're a property investor, you can list property on our portal for our provider members to see. You can access the demand portal where our providers list where they need property, so you can buy property to order. If you're a provider, you can access the property portal to see where our members have property available for you to lease, and you can list where you need property. We do not charge any additional introduction or sourcing fees. You also get access to our monthly training sessions with industry experts to help you understand supported living property and keep up to date. You get access to our monthly online networking sessions to help you connect with property investors and providers. I've written 2 training courses, one for providers and one for property investors, to help you get started in supported living property. We have a membership area filled with resources that you need, where you can watch the previous training sessions too. You get all of this for only £47.50 plus VAT a month, And because we do not want you to stay unless you think it's incredible value, you can leave at any time. Just give us 14 days notice. Simply go to www.supportedlivingproperty.uk. That's www.supportedlivingproperty.uk to join us now.